Okay. So the last session we have seen much about functional library, right? So how init works, and basically why do we need init, and how PyCache works. I guess I think it was in the before session, but init, right? So basically any module that we have to make it a Python module. Earlier versions of Python before 3.3, we have to create this file in the folder. Otherwise we wouldn't be able to. So the issue that comes up is if you're trying to import any of the script or mod script here, right? Like file functions, if I'm importing in any of the other script, it won't happen because Python doesn't use to recognize it as a Python directory. It's before 3.3. But as we have seen, right, every import that I did before even creating this file, empty file, it works fine. So __ init.py. So this is a like optional right now, but as a good practice, few of the programmers still create that file, an empty file in all the directories that they work on. And also later on, we have seen much on the command line arguments, right? We have covered all the scenarios of Sys. Like Sys is nothing but like if we are using like what Python 3 or Python space script, that script itself is the first argument that read by the system. And also anything that follows, it will be considered in the next line arguments. And we have seen the contrast, right? In theory, like says this is like more simple and it's not flexible, as in whatever the argument that you're passing, the data type, it's whether it's an int or string, it's always considering it as a string, that we have seen. And also this is the important, as I said in the last class, ArgParse is something, it has a standard set of lines that everyone uses the same. Like there are few, right, in any programming that you come across, few statements or few lines of code is always static, especially when you're trying to read arguments. Or the best example would be when you're trying to connect to a database, right? Like from Python script or your JavaScript or any script, those ODBC connections, if you are familiar with Java, people always say like so again here, right, if you're trying to connect to any database, there will be like 3-4 lines of code which is like static. So according, it's like it doesn't change, right? So it's like what is the, so in theory, right, we'll cover that. As I said, right, I'm trying to install SQLite, which is a simple database, and also MongoDB, which is a kind of a NoSQL document database. So I've installed it. I'm trying to gather everything so that we will cover in few sessions and it will save time for you also. uh, Again, so yeah, when we're coming to ArgParse also, it has like 3 lines of code which is static. And also when we cover the database connectivity, right? So when so a list small intro on databases, right? Like we don't jump onto databases today, but as I just mentioned, databases, right? So how do we, just as a theory, right, it's always good to visualize things whenever you're programming something or you're coming up with a solution to any problem statement or your requirement. You should always, I mean, one should always be thinking, right, just like that happens. So if it's a database, right, uh, let me pull up something. So here itself. So, so there will be multiple terminologies when we cover, right? So if you think of a database, so what it will be installed somewhere, right? So if you say SQLite, if have you heard of SQLite, Oracle, or like Teradata, or else the Mongo. Mongo is like whenever you look up for Python, you might have seen like MongoDB, right? It's very easy because it treats table. There are no tables per se in Mongo. Everything is called as collection. Collection is nothing but similar to a table. So if suppose we have a database, right? So database will be installed on what? a server. If I'm talking about database, which I'm trying to install, right? As I said, I'm trying to install a database on my local machine, which is this laptop. So that would become a server, right? Installs on a machine. So that becomes a server, right? Which is nothing but the local host in this case. So local host is nothing but which is hosted locally. That's how the meaning is, right? So if I'm doing it, if I'm trying to install database, if you try to install data after a few classes, it's like you are hosting it on your local machine, which is nothing but a server. When coming to the project, so what happens is, so obviously, right, project, it's not like me, just me or you who is working on a project or something. And also, you don't be working, right? So your company given laptop or your project given laptop, you don't have to install database which is centrally used by multiple teams, right? So usually what happens, this database gets hosted on some server. Could it be a Linux server? Mostly it could be a Linux server or anything, right? So in that case, what happens is this database is now installed on a different machine, right? So that we try to connect to the database via that machine. So this is two flavors, right? One is like you have it locally or you have it on a remote machine. So we need not bother about it. Like even if in my project also, right, we don't. So I deal with I'm a kind of a Linux admin as well. So I also deal with installation of these databases. But apart from that, if someone is who is just a developer, they need not bother about where the database is installed, what is the license of the database and all. So that's all managed by multiple teams. As I brought up in multiple instances, right? There will be numerous teams in a project. So one is developing and one is like IT security team and one is like database team. So there will be data admins, so who controls and manages databases or provisions, access provisions, and everything is run by DBAs. There will be every project and client will have a DBAs. So who will monitor the databases, or else they are the admins, right? So they have the ultimate right, just like admins of any system is like they have the ultimate right to it. As I was saying, I'm a Linux admin, meaning there are like 300 plus servers that my team manages. So we are the admins to that system. So just a brief, right? So you would think, what is a database kind of and where it's installed. So if you're trying to, if whatever we try to do for learning purposes, it will be on localhost. In real time, it will be installed on a different server. So we connect it with what? The IP address, right? IP address or the host name. So usually that's when we try to do a remote connections to it. So suppose database is there, and how would any programming language can connect to a database? So there should be some intermediary, right? So that intermediary is normally called a driver. So I have used this terminology in somewhere else, right? If you remember it exactly, I said driver script, which is the main script that usually calls and which in turn imports and calls built-in modules or else user defined modules and everything else. So that is a driver script. But also, whenever we try to connect to a database, there is something called a driver. So this is the so drive database is installed on some other machine, and Python code is on my machine. So Python by default has it, or there are few third-party drivers also. So what this driver does, it establishes the connection, right? There should be something. So because this is a remote server and this is my local machine, or else where my code resides, so this connection should be established, right? Connection between the database, wherever the database might be, database and your code, say your code. So you should be your code or your script in layman's term. So once it is established, so it doesn't, what it does, it creates the forum to it. So once that forum is established, so how do you connect to the database? Usually it's always the IP or the host. And and once you do it, you need a username and a password or a secret key, right? Usually this is what it is. And if you're very much interested in okay, this is when it is. I'll just give a recap. So database, it's installed on some other machine, or it could be your machine. and how do my programming language connects to the database by a driver. So how do I get this driver? Few drivers are, like say for a SQLite, and when we cover it, so SQLite driver mostly it's by default. It's kind of a default driver that comes up with Python. If it's for PyMongo, we need to install the drivers. So how do we install the driver? Just pip install, right? We have the pip module. So we use pip to install any driver or any package that we need, just like pandas, right? Pandas for data frames, or else I think it should be pip install pymongo. This should be the Mongo database driver that we need for working Python and Mongo database. We will cover it, but these are like, just good to have info and good to understand info, just as a brief, right? Before we jump onto database in the next class or so. Mostly, I think we can cover the next class. But yeah, coming to our ArgParse. So ArgParse, as we learned in theory, it's more flexible. We will see how flexible it is, and we already know how less flexible the sys is. Just like the open and with open, right? If you bring up that, we covered in few classes before. How do you kind of handle a file, read a file, write a file, append data to a file, the close connection objects, how it is, and how easy it is when we use with open, right? With open is always like it does the exception handling, everything by default. So now let's be after this, as the time permits, we'll see what is a module and a script. I've used this terminology numerous times in our every class, right? Script, and some call it as a Python script, Python module. We'll see what it is. And also name is something which is a built-in variable. It's also important to learn. We'll try to understand in completely how this name is called and what is it. And args and quarks is something very important concept in Python. It's a keyword arguments and non-keyword arguments. This is keyword. We will see args and quarks. You would see in Python FAQs, right? So what is args, what is quarks? We will see in detail on these things. So these concepts are very much important, as in we need to learn from the bottom, right? Not just in like, say, okay, these are like non-keyword or positional arguments, and these are like keyword arguments. So we don't want to just learn the theory and just have it, right? We need to understand how exactly it works, all in and out of this functionality that we have in Python. So we'll try to cover it and how they're used it, and then in the next classes we'll try to learn about databases. Like I'll try to give a very gist on databases. Most of you might be familiar with it, but as a developer, right, we need to have some understanding on database. That's what I'm striving to give a preface in this class, so that once you get time, one before we meet in the next class, you would just go through it and learn about the drivers and whatever I was saying about, right? I'm just, and also we'll try to cover a basics on database. We don't want to, it's not a DB class, right? So but we need to understand what is a database and what kind of operations. Majority of the operations that we do on a database using are Python scripts, so which is very much important, right? And also that, so there is nothing without data, right? It's a quantifiable thing, right? There is nothing without data. Any project, any application, any IT thing that we do, there is always data. So where is the data stored? Mostly in databases, because of the larger volumes. And also there are numerous types of databases with the latest technologies that comes up. There are numerous things. Earlier it used to be just Oracle, right? Even like back like 5 years, 10 years back, if you used to go, people usually any training, they call it, they give training on the Oracle itself. We have numerous types here, but we'll try to cover like, so that you should be able to answer few questions on database if they ask, and understanding the history of it. And when it comes to Python and database, you should be able to answer majority of the questions, or else you should be able to gather majority of the concepts in Python and database, and be able to replicate in your assignments, in your projects, and in future project work. That's kind of, yeah, the theory. Let's jump on to our practicals, right? This, yeah, let's go on to the ArgParse. So as I was saying, right, everything will have what? A standard set of instructions, standard set of lines of code that anyone has to use it if they're working on it. So let me just create something. Like say I'm using ArgParse. Let me just call it this way. Okay. So I don't want to have anything. Let me save it. So to use ArgParse, right? First thing is we need to import. Just like we used what earlier, Sys, right? Last class, what we imported is Sys, and now for this we need to import ArgParse. This is the package. Okay, these are like very systematic, right? There's nothing to think about it. It's like something you remember it. You can just have your own cheat sheet whenever you're whenever in your project, right? Always try to maintain a cheat sheet. Like, so, okay, how do I include runtime arguments, right? Command line arguments. So you need to have a cheat sheet. So that cheat sheet should comprise this line of code. So import ArgParse. So that's the package I need to import. And the next line is we need to create a parser object. It could be this. These are like very standard line of code. So how do I create it? It's like using the dot or operator, right? So this one I'm trying to import it. And then what I need to do is I need to create an argument parser. So what we're trying to do is, so we are trying to accept command line arguments from the user, or else whenever this script is being called by any Jenkins job or any CI/CD pipeline or by any upstream, downstream, or any other technology, any other interface within your project, right? So they always call your Python script via command line arguments that we have seen already. So there we instead of bluntly calling the script and hard coding all the data, we want to pull it out. So that's when we are giving. So let's put up this accepts a description. So description is my first so let's see where I can print it and all. So this is like the standard. So now I have an argument parser object which is called parser. I hope it's all right. Okay, and now we can add arguments to it. So how do you add arguments? Add argument of, let's say, let's start very simple. Maybe just host name instead of just, let's say, host. What I'm trying to do is when user calls this script argparsing.py, I want to accept my first argument as the host name. Like say we are trying to connect my high level requirement, right? Let's say this is my requirement for 3 more sessions. So what is it is connect to a database and execute something, execute queries at a very high level. What are the queries? Queries is nothing but in structured query language, we always call query, right? So it could be like a simple statement called select star from table. So what it does, star is nothing but wild character, right? It's star, whatever, anything that is present is star. So what does select star from a table does? It gathers all the data in the table and tries to dumps it to you. How you use it, it's up to you. So something like it's a sample query. It need not have all conditions, right? Where conditions to it. Anything is a query. So that is my very high level requirement. So which I commented it. So now what is that I need to add? I need to add a host to it. So one magic with this is one useful thing is, so what we have learned here in theory, ArgParse is more flexible. It handles different types, optional arguments, and there is, and it also does a type check. We will learn one by one. There's something called number of arguments in args. We will learn that as well. But as it's flexible, what it does is it can give some help info to the user also. I'll give a recap again. Let's say provide the host name. What is the help I'm trying to give is I'm trying to say provide the host name. We will see where this comes up. And like say we are adding only accepting only one argument here at this point. So now how do I read it? Again, it's kind of we can create the argument. So here my parser is holding this. Let's say my parser is here, and then we need to kind of parse argument. These are like standard set of code. We can I'll try to explain at a high level what we try to do once this is there. And then let me create another variable here. So how do we read it? What is my name here? Host. Print of, let's just see host name provided by the user. So right now we go step by step, right? I don't have the code to connect to a database. I don't have a database and all, but I'm trying to just go step by step here so that we can use the same example like we did earlier. First name provided by user is, okay. Let's see if it runs or not. Okay, sorry, I could have maximized it. Okay, let's see. And my terminal is here. Okay, so my program is somewhere, right? Arc parsing. Okay, so I don't know what it is, right? So this we know, this command line execution, we already know it. Okay, so say suppose you have given me this code, right? I don't know much about Python. Well, I don't know it, but as you have told me, as you are my downstream or upstream, or we are in the same team, right? Like say I'm in the .NET, or else I'm the UI developer. So as a UI developer, I need to pass some values which user enters on a web page. Like say user actually selects host name and everything. So that is the first part. Okay, that's how the everything builds, right? So supposing right now what we are learning, try to observe, right? There are like many ways how a utility or a program can be built. Or I said right earlier in one of the instance, what I said is like we're trying to automate everything. If you remember exactly, I said kernel upgrade, which is related to the Linux systems, right? Or even every operating system will have kernels, but the upgrade which I mentioned was kernel upgrade. So there will be some upgrade version which is opened by the operating system, and we need to update it. So coming back to here, right? So how many ways you could accept input from user? So one is directly from, very basic thing is hard coded in the script. So where you don't give an option to the user, right? Everything is hard coded in your script. And the next one is, another is what usually we accept from user. So how many ways you could accept from it from a user? So let's say 2.1. One is from the command line argument, right? What we are trying to achieve right now as command line arguments. And there could be something, right, very advanced, or if you know much bit about UI coding, right? If you could develop a web page or just use anything to develop a web page. So how does an end-to-end workflow happens? So user will provide input from a via a web page, meaning a portal, right? Just like you launch a portal, a an URL, and you will be prompted to give the details, like say what is the host name, what is the host, or it could be a drop down also, right? User need not fill it everything. So on the UI, you will have a drop down list where user just selects the host name and username, and all these are text fields, right? Usually these are secure text field, password, and then user can give a query also. So this is one way, right? This is the more sophisticated end-to-end project. So user is providing web page to it. Like say I am the UI developer. So what my job is to get the inputs from the user. So this is all I have given the user. I have already developed this code. So you have given me. So but as a UI developer, I don't have anything to connect to a database, right? I don't know the business logic. So all my efforts are to develop a web page here. Like say supposing, right? Very example, think of like user is selecting a radio button here, ignore about all this part. So I'm trying to do it. So my job is to put up some options here so that user just gives the data, and your Python script does everything else, right? As in your Python script connects to the database, executes it, you kind of handle everything, and you format the data, and then you send it back to me again. So that is my 2.4. Okay, this should be a very good example because this is how it actually works from my experience. I mean, I'm not saying for everybody, but okay. So we're still talking about this, right? 2.1. So now as a UI developer, this is the UI part. Now again, what UI part does? UI part will call your Python script, right? So again, this is again Python. So now as the Python script is called, Python will connect to DB, query, do everything. What is by the logic, by the requirement, right? And then what does Python need to do? Again, Python need to send back the result to UI. So again, in the same call, right? They're using the command line arguments. Once they run the code like Python space my driver script with the inputs, so UI will do it. And then again, it will be the job of the 2.6 UI. So UI will now present the result to the user. So this is an real-time workflow. Like say you are developing something, there are like two teams talking. So I'm the UI developer, you are the Python programmer. So you are giving it to me. So now you understood, right, how important this ArgParse is at least at some level. So why I'm stressing this much. So this is how it is. So now I'm running this. So you have given me the code. Okay, I'm running this. I don't know what it is. I'm just trying to run it. I got this message. Okay, arc parsing error. The following arguments are required. What is required? Host is required. How it's saying host is required? Because I haven't given anything. And this is one of my argument, host. And then if you read more, right? So usage arc parsing -h host. So they're saying -h, right? Let's see -h. What is -h? So usage arc parsing, my first arc parse. It is giving some info to me, right? So you have developed this Python code and it is giving some info. It says my first arc parse. So where it is coming from, the description. So here it says my first arc parse. So let's make it more meaningful, like connect and query database. Let's run it again. Okay, yeah. I can still make it more meaningful, right? This program to okay. Let's say what to say. I don't want to type in more text. Script. What it does. Okay. Now it says connect and query database. And what it needs positional arguments. This is again, somebody might ask, what is a positional argument? Positional argument is where it is positioned, right? By the name it says. Okay. Where it is positioned, it should have been positioned after arc parsing.py. There should have been something else here, which I'm not passing. I don't know. So that is the positional argument. Like there could be multiple arguments here, but the position of the argument matters. Like first argument, second argument, third argument. That all matters. But for this point, there is only one positional argument that is missing. What is missing here? Host. Provide the host name. So this is how it is. So if you need, if you want to send more, right, you could say provide the host name in x dot x dot x dot x form. Provide the host name in this form, so people would know it could be like the IP format. And then what is the options that were given here? It's like -h alone. So because that is the help, by default ArgParse provides that optional argument. So now we're trying to connect now, right? I hope you're trying to connect what we're trying to do here and what makes ArgParse more useful. So though I might not have the knowledge on Python, just by providing help, right, this at least I should be able to know as a UI developer. And now I know it. Okay, what is the error I'm trying to? I was getting here. I wasn't passing any arguments. What argument I'm not passing? At this point, this particular script needs only one positional argument. Okay, and what is the format it needs? It needs this format. And did I give any int or string here? Nothing. I didn't give anything here. But let's see what it is. This is all uh, an explanatory, right? Okay. And now let me see. Okay, this is how it is. So now what it needs, it doesn't need any separator, right? And then what I can give, I can just give something like say 192.23.45.67. That is the format it needed, right? It said x dot x dot x, but I can give anything also. I can give 192 also. See, it doesn't matter because I didn't put any validation here, any restriction here, but that is something else. But let's not try to break it at this point. Let's try to understand what it is, what is happening. So anything after the script name will be the first positioned argument. So here I have only one argument, which is I'm naming it as host. As simple as that. I didn't put anything, right? I'm naming it as host, and then I'm just trying to give a help here, and this line is to just read everything and pass it on to args. And let me see, always try to understand what is args. Let's see if it prints what is the type of args here. See, it's the arg parse namespace. So where it is getting all the arguments. So this is the lines of code you just need to remember if you're trying to use ArgParse. Rest all it would change. So like say this part you would have to remember it, but rest all will be changing by your requirement or your program, because this name need not be the same. Your help is same. You just provide the more meaningful info. Okay. At this point, we are reading only one argument. So hope you're all clear with it, right? Arc parsing. What is a positional argument? And now let's accept one more argument. And how do I do it? Just copy paste this part, right? And now let us, so here what I'm using, I'm just using host, but user providing anything before to it? Nothing. He's just giving after the script, he's giving it, let it be the same. And after it, I want to read something. And I want user to give an, instead of that, right? If it's like multiple arguments has to be given, I could give something like kind of a delimiter, right? I'll say -a. Will again come back. So what it is? -a. And what do I call it? Maybe UN. Like say UN. Say I'm trying to get the username, right? Once the host is provided, I'm able to read it. I need to accept the username, right? From the user to connect to a database. Every database will have an username. And let's use this. I'll explain again what actually this is. And username should be what? Now we can give type. I think we can just ignore it. That's fine. We can ignore type here, not a problem. And then we always give help, right? So that the others can understand. Username for the DB. Let's make it short. And once what we can do is type we will learn in the next example. Let's say, let's just accept this. So now what it is, I don't need to change any other code here. Only thing is I can just use this, or if I want to use it, I'll just say args.username, or else why do again create another variable unless I'm reusing it again, right? Let's say print off. What it is, we have commented it, right? You could use it by the same way, dot operator. So args. So we're adding another argument -un, and we're trying to name it as username. So this is when you can call it. So this I will explain in a bit. So what this does and why it was missing it. And now I've given a help. I didn't mention whether it is required or not. We can make it mandatory also, but let's ignore it for now. So now I don't know much. I'm just running the same. Okay. Because I've added a new argument, but I'm not aware of it. I'm just running it. See, it ran, it didn't error out. I don't want this to be printed. I don't want type. Okay. So what do we have here? It is printing hostname provided by user is something, because this is what it is. And then what it is printing next, username passed by user is none. But did I pass anything? No. By default, if nothing is passed, it consider it as none. None is nothing but none value, blank. Nothing has been there. It's none, as in nothing. So it didn't throw me an error, right? But also it didn't prompt me to pass it, right? If you see -h, if you see here, now my help message is changed a bit. This is same positional argument, and then options -un, you need to give username. What did we give? Username for the DB. So where is that value coming from? Here, username for the database. But right now I didn't mention it as mandatory or anything. So by default, it is considering it as optional. Even if it's not passed, if it's used anywhere in the program, it's not erroring out. It is trying to just pass the none value to it. So now I have to make it mandatory, right? I need to enforce user to submit the username. So as for my script to execute. So how do we make it mandatory? So there is simple optional field here. It is called required. So, okay. First, let's see what is false. Required is false is nothing but what? It is not required. Not required always goes by what? Optional. So if I run it, see, it didn't give me any error, because even if this argument is, even if this option is providing or not, it doesn't matter to me because it's optional. That's why even if it wasn't there, it's the same, it's there, it's does the same. So now let's make it true. This is the keyword, right? That's why I'm not putting it in the quotes. If I put it in quotes, it will become string and it will error out. So true. So what happens now if I give 22.23.45.67? See, now there is an error. ArgParsing.py, there is an error. The following arguments are required. What is required? -un, which is nothing but the username is required. So now you're telling me as a Python programmer, you're forcing the UI developer to pass the username or accept the username from the end user. So here, okay, I need to pass the username. So how can I pass the username? Let's try it. So let's say I don't have an understanding of -un, right? Let's just say Sam. Okay, what is happening again? The following arguments are required. It is not able to read it, right? Because I have to provide the username with the tag or else the separator -un. It is giving me an option here, -un. See, now it is accepting everything. Host name is given and username provided by the user is Sam. Okay. So now my program is fine. I'm accepting username and it is required field. I don't want to give it anything. And like say, okay, hope you're following until here. So as I said, right, multiple times I'm repeating. So this is also standard set of code. And also this part, it didn't change, right? I'm accepting multiple arguments, majorly second argument, but still I didn't touch anything. All I'm adding is like, I'm repeating the same similar kind of line of code, right? Args.host. Where is host here? So I made it more meaningful just to separator, right? -un. You could make it as -n also. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. If it's -n, then obviously we need to make it -un. So if you give -un here, it's gonna say wrong because it doesn't know what -un is. But why I started with an un is it's a short form like username, right? We don't want to make it username here, just a short form, because you will be accepting much more values when you have to connect to a database, right? If it's an Oracle, there will be apart from the host name, there will be a couple of fields, like I can't recollect exactly, but apart from the host name, you should be passing two more fields, and then you will be. I mean, there will be something called database also within the DB, and service name, yeah, service name and DB tag. There are a few other fields that you have to pass, which is like already given in the project, right? Whoever creates the database will define all those values, but it's not just host name username, but for our simplicity we're trying it. So, and suppose right now, okay, this is what it is, right? And now let us accept one more value. We'll try to cover everything here, right? We have seen required, which is true or false. Required false is nothing but it is an optional field. And let us see if we can accept a set of values. Like say, if I'm type, right, let's say -t, will say what it is. Will say type of database. This is just theory today. I mean, simple example. Okay, and what I have to give, if I want to make it required, I'm trying to use the same code. Required is true. And then let's try to make it choices, right? What I'm saying is I want to confine the values. I'm not just randomly accepting any user given input, right? I want to give like what is the type of databases I have. So just like your multiple choices, right? So what we're trying to give is choices. Like say it's a SQL, no SQL, simple databases, right? Or let's say again cloud. Suppose my project just has three types of databases I'm having, and then again I need to give help, right? Choose the three types of choose from the available three types. And let's end this. So again, what I need to give, I could just use the same, right? Print. we're not handling it. So right now, just to confine our program, we're printing it. But ideally, what we can do is you could use the host name, you could use the username, you could use the type of database, and actually we will write the other line of code to connect to the database and do some data operations. At first, we're trying to learn majorly on ArgParse. So how it is important to us and how it's meaningful to the other, upstreams, whoever is using my Python script. So now what I can do is, and type chosen by user is, how do I call it? Args dot maybe let's make a type of DB. Okay, so it is required, and I've given some a new field that has come up is choices, nothing but the multiple choices here, and we'll see how it works. And then we have given help also, right? Let's see. Let's run the same. The following arguments are required. So what is required? Hyphen un is required, hyphen t is required. I made it again un. Let's fix it for now. Un is there, and then now type of db is required. So what I need to give is hyphen t, right? Hyphen t space. Let's say I don't know some type, because I don't know the databases, right? Let's say SQL type. So now, okay, I got an error, right? What it says, minus t type of DB, invalid choice. I have given SQL type. It says it's invalid. So what it's saying, choose from SQL, NoSQL, or cloud. Only when I pass either of any of these available values, then only the program is going to execute. So here, what we're trying to do, we are forcing the input kind of, we are confining the user input for a particular field, which is my type of database, as an example, within these three values. Okay, it says SQL, NoSQL, and cloud. Let me run my program again. It says, okay, SQL. It is still wrong. Why? Because it is case sensitive. Though I've given in uppercase, it is expecting lowercase values. Let's say SQL. Okay, now it ran fine. Can I interchange these two? Because this I cannot interchange because it's an positional argument. As long as whatever is after this Python script name is positioned argument, it has to be the first one. The host is positioned because I didn't define any tag to it, or identifier to it, or separator to it, right? I just gave host, and I'm reading the same host everywhere in my program. But if you look at username, it's tagged, right? So it's not positioned argument, it's keyword argument kind of. So now, what if, let me see if it works or not. I'm trying to change the order. See, it ran fine. It didn't get interchanged, right? Though I changed the order here, it still read hyphen t SQL as that my type chosen by the user, database type, and username is still Sam. This is one advantage of it, right? You need not pass it in the same order. It's unordered. It accepts unordered here because it's keyword based. Let's say consider it as hyphen t or hyphen un, but here my host is positioned argument. So if I give anything before, you can try it out. If you give anything, if you try to change this, it's gonna error out. Whatever is in the first value, it tries to read it as, mostly it might take hyphen t also, hyphen t as your host, and it might try to print it, and then it's gonna error out stating, okay, you haven't defined -t, which is the type and which is the username. So see, we have seen, for now we have seen like 50 or 60% of the advantages, or the flexibility that ArgParse provides to the user or the developer. There is still some more, but I'll just pause a minute here. I mean, most majority of it is what this is what we use it, whether it is required. And you could always type also, if you're just accepting any integer value, then you can just give type int also. Like say, we'll try to use all, right, try to cover everything. Like say, what is it, like say my port, right? So every database or every connection, right? Okay, this is something else. So anything that you work with, uh, where is it, here, right? When I'm saying driver, when you're trying to connect to the remote machine, usually just by giving the host name will not work. There will always be a port that should be open. If you in your urls, if you use colon 8080 is the common port which you might see, right, for databases, I believe. So there will always be a port, 4-digit port, or could be anything. Majority of the applications use 4-digit, like say 8080. So what is the high level understanding, right? See, as a project or as a client or as a firm, right? If this is, supposing this is my project machine, so my IP, right? So somebody has tried to come up with this my IP, or found out my IP by somewhere from some other source. If I keep my system open to the public, as in everybody, so they will be able to establish a connection to my system, right? The hacker will be able to establish a connection to my project system, right? So whenever we allow connections, so this is like intra-site only or inter-site. It's like within the network. Select your client network. There, people will call it as client network or VPN. You know, um, let's say Citrix is, there are a few other terms. So what happens is, so suppose you're working for some ABC company, right? So you represent ABC company, but your client is some healthcare, like say consider or a banking, our own example, like HDFC, right? So though you belong to a ABC firm provides services for client, for a for bank. Let's say the bank name itself is bank. Okay, right? So though we represent to this firm, we kind of help this bank in coming up with solutions, or like AXA websites or anything, right? Their issues. So if I'm working on my ABC firm's laptop, what happens? That internet is controlled, right? That data is controlled by the ABC firm. But as it's the name bank, right? It's always like sensitive info. They cannot just disclose all the info to others, right? They, even though they are partners, they can't just leave it. So they will try to, so from ABC firm, how do I connect to the bank? There will be something always called a VPN. So that's one VPN or Citrix, right? Whatever I went. So what it does is, so this guy takes control of the internet, takes control of what happens in that machine. So this is like high level, you need not understand it, but as the port concept came in, I'm trying to give you a high level on what exactly happens within the projects and the firms. So this controls it. So as long as I'm connecting to the Citrix or VPN, I will be able to use anything that is built on this site. So like say the 300 servers I said, right? They are owned by what? This bank. They're not owned by the ABC firm, because we are just providing services to this bank. So all these 300 servers are owned by the bank. But as I work for this bank, I have control over it. But how do I access that control? I have to connect to the bank network. Unless I connect to the bank network, I cannot access anything. So how do I connect to the bank network? Through the VPN or Citrix. There are some other channels. So which secures this bank's data, right? This is the high level example. And it's coming to the same way within the bank also. This database is installed on some server one, like say server one. So even within the bank, I'm also within bank, right? Within bank, my machine, if my machine needs to connect server one for accessing database, right? So if it's for accessing database, not not just by giving IP, it doesn't work, because it always needs all the anything that connects remotely, right? It opens up a port. So port is always important. You always connect to the remote server via a port, especially when it comes to databases or your application, anything, right? Like you have developed, okay, you would have heard about Flask, right? Flask app in Python. If you haven't heard, just Google about Flask. It's a framework which we use. Like say, most of the apps that I have built is using Flask framework only. So I have built up. So every app, so I have built like say 5 apps on a server on my machine, right? On a server, I have built 5 apps. How do I differentiate these 5 app servers? 5 apps or app servers. So how do I differentiate it? By ports. All the 5 apps are residing on my machine, which is nothing but utilities I have developed or my team has developed. They are residing on the same server. But how do I differentiate it? By ports. So ports play an important role. That's why I'm trying to give you the background. Let's go back to our example. So where is it? So now I'm trying to accept a port value, because every database we should connect to a port. It doesn't matter, because that is the port. Again, going back, right? That is the port they allow connections to the remote servers. If like say my port is 8080, I have to use 8080 port in order to connect to my database on which is on server 1. If I use 8081, it says remote connectivity failed. It doesn't work because the intra security team did not expose the 8081 port. They would have exposed only 8080 port within the bank's network. Like say if I'm out of bank network and I try to connect to the server 1, it doesn't work. So these are the different levels of security that are there in any project. It need not be banking or healthcare or any security, anything. So all the projects will have utmost security, because there will always be cyber attacks, right? See, you would have heard of people sending this money request links on phone pay or Google pay, or anywhere, right? Or in any this money transfer system. It is like individual attacks. So there will be these attacks to the individual. As an individual, I am getting the attack, but there could be hackers who targets organizations also, like say this bank, ABC Bank or XYZ Bank or ABC Pharma, XYZ Healthcare. So there are many hackers who tries to break the client system, their company's network. They don't target individuals. There are there. It happens. So that's why every project or every company will have an IT security team. So how what they do, so they define anything that you work, right? Anything that gets installed on this laptop or this laptop, they define the versions to it. That's why in my very first class, I would have mentioned. So the version that we use is still 3.7, not the latest 3.11, because there are few versions which are finalized by the TROs. See, you cannot be master of all the trades, right? You will be master of programming or AI or database DB admin and all. There are other programmers also who works on IT security. So they try to stop all the attacks that happens outside in the world, right? All these 300 servers, or there could be 3000 servers for this bank. They have to protect all the 3000 servers, right? not just from by these employees who are accessing the data, and also from outside world. There are n number of hackers who tries to break into their systems. They do it. So how do they do it? They don't allow anything that, you know okay, I want to install some VLC player. I won't be able to do it because they don't allow the TXE to run. They define all any EXEs that can be run on these machines, these 3000 servers or machines or end user machines. They control it. That is the major objective of the IT support teams. There will be multiple teams. I thought to throw some interesting points, right? See, it's a vast, everything is vast, right? When we say we work for a firm, we work from a client, there are numerous teams working on it, which we might not be aware. Yeah, just fun to learn, and also very sensitive topics. That's why whenever you get into a project or in anything, don't install anything, or we don't browse the internet for our personal stuff or in any other thing. Even if I'm trying to find a solution to my problem, I don't want to click on any other link that comes up. Any suspicious links we don't click, because there could be malware. I might be opening the doors for some malware, which I don't want to do it. So yeah, there are many things once you get into projects, right? These are all good to learn. And okay, that is the importance of port and security. Why do we need it? And you know, if I just say port, so what is it, right? You might just think, you might not get the info on what is the importance of a port. And it also, like, when you are coming up, when you're setting up the systems or connectivity for your, say suppose you're in ground zero, as in you've started, the project is starting just now today, so you might need to be able to set up everything. You'll be given servers, you're working on it. So you so you have installed something, or you have developed a program. Even your teammates might not be able to access the URL, it because the port might not have been opened. So there will be some request in the background. We give to the security team, okay, open up this port within the network. So they will open up a specific port, I say, so that anybody within the network can access my utility. That is a background and importance. And what I've just covered, the top layer of ports and security there. It's a vast topic. So now I need it as port. I need a port. Again, what I wanted it to be required, because without it I can't access. I need to make it as type int. There won't be any strings, right? It's always a number. And then help provide the port. Provide the DB port. So what is my next step? Copy paste this and use it, right? How do I call the port? Args.port. Okay. As always, we just want to run. Okay, it is missing something. Can I position it before hyphen T? Yes, because it's keyword, it's not positioned. So let's say PUIV. Okay. What it says, invalid int value. I just gave UIY random value. It says it's invalid because it has to be int. See, it's saying in a different way, right? It's not saying, okay, boss, you pass the string. It's saying invalid int value. It's not a int. It notes it's not a int. So let's try to edit it. Can I give something like this? See, though I give it in quotes, it is still accepting it. Even if I don't give it in quotes, it's not considering it as a string. Yeah, this could be some kind of small questions that comes up. So though you like, your question could be like this, right? So in ArgParse, if you're accepting an input as a type int, can you still surround it by quotes and send it? It is accepting. As long as the value within the quotes is just int, it accepts. See, it is accepting. It doesn't matter with the position. It's not positional argument. Yeah. And pretty much this is it. There is something called -n. Maybe I'll just cover it. So what if, what? We can still cover multiple things, but yeah, it's not widely used, but I'll just give, before I jump onto it, I'll just want to give a recap. So first, what we have learned is a positional argument, and then what we have learned is optional by a identifier or a separator, and then next one is we made it again true, right? This if you remove this part or make true as false, it becomes optional. And if it's optional, okay, let's see something. Okay, what I was saying is port is always or most of the times 8080. And how do I handle it if user doesn't send me the port, because I know it's always 8080 for this particular application? So how do we do it? We can always give a default value, right? We have seen in functional arguments, right? Optional value. We said, we gave that, okay, b equal to something. If user doesn't pass that argument, there is always a default value. So so now Bhavik, you might need to go on mute. Thank you. So instead of required equal to true, right? What I can give is maybe just leave it as is. It doesn't matter. It's kind of not required. Or maybe let's try. So let's give default. Default, what is default means, as we know, if user doesn't pass the value, it's gonna consider some value as a default value, right? So let me run it as is. So it, or else I can give, okay, we ran as is, okay. It's still saying required because I didn't give this, I didn't remove this. So it's contradicting, right? It's of no use if I give default, or maybe I can give default also. Yeah, let me see. Okay, we left is true, we gave a default value. It's not allowed, but just to cover something, let me give a value. Okay, see, I passed 8081. It is accepting it, it considered 8081, but a default is given, it's overriding, but this is not required actually. If I want to make it optional, I don't want to make it required true because it's contradicting, right? It didn't give an error, but it's contradicting. Okay, so 8081 is there. Now I don't want to pass the port value. See, as user hasn't passed it, it took the default value to it. It's somewhat important also. So if user is skipping or else it's always the same value, instead of hard coding in your code, you're considering it here. So if somewhat, okay, you're using the same program, if you want to make it 8081, you could just make it 8081. If user doesn't pass it, it always consider default value. Some importance, right? It always carries some importance. And pretty much it, right? I'll be covering one more type in ArgParse, which is like summation. It considers it as a list, but I'll cover that. That's the only topic left on ArgParse. Mostly, I guess we have covered 99% of how we use ArgParse. So see, rest all is like once you read the argument, it always changes by your requirement. How you use it, you could always have a validation to the default port or validation to the username. Like say username should be like 4 characters or 5 characters, you know, or host name. You could always see that separated by the dot, and there should be, once you split it, there should be four values to it. You could always add those. So again, right? If I have to host name, whatever is the user is passing, what is user is passing, this. If I want to see if it's a valid port or valid IP or not, I could always split this string by dot operator. Now you'll have, right, 0 1 2 3. Your length of that list should be 4. So you could do all that validations within your code. But uses of ArgParse is mostly this is it. And the last one, what I was saying is, it could accept multiple values. So that is something which we'll see. That's the last one before we close this session. So like say, maybe just queries. Let's say queries. I want to accept some queries. So how do I accept the queries? I'm saying it as queries. And there is another optional field called narcs. So we'll cover it at least. So I'll explain what it is. Number of arguments, right? And I don't want to give type because I just want to leave it as is. Consider it as a string. If I don't give a type, it's almost a string, right? Let's say pass on the queries. So print of queries. It could be anything, right? Queries passed by user. We call it args.queries. Okay, I'll explain in detail in just a minute. So let us run. It's not going to give anything. It's not going to give anything as in, yeah, this is not going to give anything. It's none. And it's also not going to give me an error because by now we've learned it's not required true, right? And also, as I've not given it default value, it is considering it as none. This we have seen for host also, right? Right. So now minus q. So what this guy does, just like the default and required, a number of arguments, you can say it, narcs, right? So let's see. Plus is, I'll explain the importance of plus. There are like 3, 4 types that you can provide. But let's just say I want to give hyphen is what? Q, right? Hyphen Q, first query, and I am accepting queries, right? Second query. See? Okay. Let's go over the result. I gave hyphen Q, which you know what it is, and then I've given some strings here, right? 2 strings here. One is first query. What it did, whatever I passed here, whatever I passed after Q, it made it into a list. One advantage of it. So after that, what you can do? So now this is my list. So you know what to do with the list, right? You can iterate through a list, and then you can execute the query one after the other. That all basics you know it. Other than connecting to the database, how do I execute the query? Leave about all that. But so now you are able to fetch a host name, a port name, a username, leave about password and a type of the database, and now you have the query to be executed against that database. So this, what this gives us is, it gives us a feasibility to accept multiple inputs at the same time. Instead of creating hyphen q query 1, hyphen q1, hyphen q2, hyphen q3, I got rid of everything, right? Imagine I'm just accepting all the queries in one stretch, and also I need not split everything. See, one could say, okay, what if I gave in the username or else in hyphen p? You could always do that also, right? Everything, put everything in single quote and separate it by comma, consider it as a string, and then you split the string, and then you, that becomes a list, and you can iterate it. Why do it I take all that headache if I already have the feature in the ArgParse, which is nothing but nargs and args. So what it's doing is it is accepting multiple inputs and it's making a list. After that, it's up to you to how to play. Okay, this is one thing. And now, did I give anything here? No. Let me try. I haven't given the type, right? So it is accepting integers also, but it's still considered as a string. You can always cast it. That's all. That all you're already well aware of it right now. So now, this I hope this is clear. So now, what does it this guy do, right? This is the keyword. So now, what does plus means is it accepts one or more. If I give, so if I didn't give what it said, did it complain anything? No, right? It didn't complain. If I make it one, let's see, let's learn the other way around. So narcs or make it maybe two. I just want to accept only two. See, I gave it got an error. I want to keep a limit for the queries that user is passing to me. Invalid narcs value from none. It says invalid narcs value, meaning it cannot accept the third value here. So it should work if I'm passing. Oh, no, something is wrong. Oh, okay, it should be an integer. It should be an integer, right? Because I've given it in quotes, it considers it as a string and it's giving me the error, value error. See, now the error is different. It says it should accept only two values. So if as a pass third value, it says unrecognized documents 1, 2, 3. It's not giving. So if it's a list or something, what is the error that we get is index error, right? Or index error, I guess that's the error that you usually get. So but now it's saying unrecognized arguments. It's not able to recognize anything that is after the second argument. So if you give an integer, it defines number of arguments to accept, right? If it's 1, 3, 2, whatever you give. And if you want to make it plus, it's accepting one or more, right? We have seen it. And then if you want to do 1, 2 is fine. And if it's also star, it doesn't matter. It's 0 or more, but we have seen it's working, right? It doesn't matter. And then what is the next one is, yeah, I think that's fine. Optional is there, a question mark. I think you could try it out. If it's optional, you could always give some optional value. So let's say, I don't know whether how it accepts. This should be in the ports itself, I believe. Let's say default equal to default query. Okay, so now, no, let's not do this. I don't want to, I want to see basically what it's gonna do if I give default value, keeping plus. What is the by definition plus is like 0 or more, 1 or more. Let me run it again. What it's giving. It still gave, it didn't give me an error because I gave the value. I want to get rid of hyphen q and see what is happening. Yeah, it's passing default query. It doesn't matter much. If I'm not giving anything, it is accepting default. And yeah, what if I give 2? Maybe it's gonna throw me an error. Yeah, it's not doing much of error handling here by definition. So if you're not passing anything, it's going to pass some default value. Here, as per the theory, I don't want default queries here. Yeah, these are the different types. This is like, I haven't used it much personally, but rest all is like, these are and all we use it every time. And my program usually I had to accept like 6 or 7 arguments, command line arguments. Most of them is always required. Choice is always good to provide, right? So that you're making the user aware what they need to pass, so that they're not messing up the program or erroring out the program. This is like maximum of ArgParse. What we have learned to accept positional again, and then keyword, and then made it required false, which is default optional, and we've also provided a default value, and then we have also given an option to choose from a list of values as a multiple choice, and then we have within the same argument multiple values within the same argument with the uses of narcs. Yeah, this is with ArgParse. We are okay, 6:38, almost 1.5 hour, right? I guess I can stop it here, but before I stop, yeah, ArgParse, right? This is the examples and the flexibility, right? By the theory, what we've learned, it's more flexible. It handles optional. It does a type checks, and narcs is nothing but number of arguments. In contrast, in the last session that we have seen for sys, it's very simple, right? There is no separator or anything. It always consider it as a string, and it's not giving any helpful info for the user. Everything is in part of ArgParse. So obviously you have to use ArgParse. I mean, not have to use, but yeah, depending on the scale of the project, you always use ArgParse. As I was saying, it's a very simple thing. You just need to accept one argument, or else if you're developed a page where you just accept one, maybe use sys so that you're not loading your program much. It's much simpler this way. Just for one argument, you don't need to repeat all these lines of code, right? We had this is the standard code that you need to type in. You don't need to put everything. You just give import sys.arg of what did how did we call it, right? If you remember it, it's like sys.argv, right? Argv of 0, which is the script name, and if it's the anything after the script name, if you need to give this kind of a list, right? Argv.1 and so on. Even if you just want one argument, if user is providing multiple arguments, it doesn't fail, that we have seen in the last class. So sys is just nothing but one import statement, and however you want to use it. But ArgParse, it's not such easy, but it's sophisticated. It is flexible. This is with ArgParse. I think that's enough for today. If I continue another topic, you might not absorb it, but maybe I can just cover one simple topic or not. Kola, do we have anyone continuing, or this is it? Maybe it's not here. Okay, this is one topic. Maybe I can cover it, right? It will take your mind off this ArgParse. So, okay, this I gave multiple times of recap. So yeah, this is all standard. Don't be worried with all the lines of code, right? This is all standard. Anyone who is using ArgParse, they have to code all these lines. It doesn't change. As you've seen, right? I just repeated, I just copy pasted it. But the basic syntax, good to learn, good to remember. And okay, there is something, right? If I pull up my old programs, maybe. Okay, let's not do that. I might need to create a. I'll just take 10 more minutes, maybe. Mm, I don't want it. Okay, let's create a mm, secondary. Let's say something. So here, I want to copy it. This guy. C. Okay. So difference between module or a script, right? That is one of the important interview question. So let's say I don't have anything here. And name value is how do I print it? If it's the name value is, it should be name. Let's see. Okay. I just have one print statement in this. Let me run it. If it works, I'll explain it. So now I need to go to secondary, right? Okay. So now I'm here, but let's say script one. And let me run this. Okay, it is working. I'll explain now. So what we're trying to do is let me not give all this. Let's name value. Okay, it's very simple concept, but good to learn. What is my name value? It is something called main. Right now it is main. Let's go back to our PPT. Okay, so this is the terminology I've used, right? I mix it up. I say it's a script, it's a module. People call it as Python script, Python module, blah blah blah. Okay, but if you have seen any references in Python, you would have seen some set of code, like say, okay, this is something, and I have uh, function one. Let's say, okay. Does nothing, right? I don't have anything here. So my function one, how do we call it? It should, right? Let me run this. Okay. So I'm calling this function, right? Whenever I'm running this script, what it's doing, it is running this part, right? And the same thing we have seen, if another script imports this script one, what it does when it compiles it, it's gonna run everything, right? It looks for syntax error and everything. Like in the same way, this is gonna run. If you guys remember it exactly, it's gonna run. Like, so I can show it. Maybe I can give a recap. Let's say this is my script 2. So in my script 2, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do import script 1. I'm not gonna do anything else. So, okay. So what is my script 2 here? Nothing. It is importing script 1. But what is in the script 1? Script 1 has something called to print, and there is a simple function definition which does nothing, and also I'm calling that function. But though I'm not directly calling script 1, as I'm importing it, it's gonna compile it, and then it's gonna run anything that is executable in there. right? That's what is happening. Okay. So now what if I just want this to be run only when I directly execute the script one. So now what is happening? Though I'm not directly executing script one, as it's being imported in another script, this line of code is always executing. I don't want that to happen. So what is the provision that we have in Python? Something called name. If you come back here, it's nothing but a special built-in variable that holds the name of the current module or script. Okay, this is all theory. I'll explain it. So what is happening here? Let's come back to our program here. So I'm trying to build some value, right? This is the built-in variable. What is the output that I get? Is name value is script1. So earlier what I was getting, I'll come back again. So earlier, just remember at this point is when I was directly executing script1, what it said, this particular value underscore name value is main. When I am calling or importing script1 in another script, what is that value is script1. So this is the module. So now this as a single guy, script1 is a script, but when I'm calling it and importing it in script2, now script1 is a module. Standalone, it's a script. This guy is a script as a standalone, but as I'm importing it in another script, Python script, so now script1 is my module. This is the correct way of referring to it. Whenever I say it's a module, meaning this is my module, right? Just like import pandas is nothing but a module. It need not be anything, it need not be a functional definition also, but as long as I'm importing script1, here script1 is a module, but here this particular Python file is a script alone. Try to kind of remember it or understand it. The definition, people might ask you what is the difference between a module or a script. As a standalone, it's a script. While it's getting imported, it's considered as a module. That's the basic thing. So now I want this guy not to execute when this particular script is being imported, right? That's what we have seen. It imports. That's the functionality of Python. So now how do I do it? So usually how we you would have seen, as I said, if you browse through Python programs, you would have seen people mentioning it like this. So now what is the value for the name? Main, right? This is the printed value. I didn't type it. Let's use it. Where is it? If it is main, then only run it. Okay. I'll explain again. So you should have got it by now, but I'll explain it. So now what is happening? Same, right? Earlier it was doing this and calling that function also. How was it calling this function? Let's not okay, this is my script 2, this is my script 1, and this is my bash. Okay, see, earlier it was printing this. Obviously it's gonna print because I didn't put it under anywhere. Even if it's compiled, it's executed, it's gonna do it. And earlier, as this function one was standalone, it's not bit in this if block, it was running. But now I have put it in something, a block, right? Conditional statement. We'll come back to it now. When I gave Python 3 script2.py, it didn't run this because this guy is a module. When it is running as a module, what is the name value for it? It's a script1, right? So this script has become a module when I'm running this guy, and now this value is not matching to it, right? Name value is script1. Script1 obviously is not equal to main. That's the reason when I'm importing this script, it doesn't run this part. And now let us run it. Let us run my script 1. See, now it executed everything. Now my name value is main, and as the name value is main, it is calling the function 1. And what function 1 does, it just prints, does nothing, it is printed. This is the importance of name variable. It's a built-in variable. So one might ask me, so what is the fun of doing it? You already know the fun of doing it, right? As long as this script is not being called, you're not going to execute what is under this name main, the name variable. This block is not going to execute as unless you directly call the script, right? It could be your, like say this is my function library, right? If this is my function library, I might have some code which I just want to test, just like I'm testing this function. I have some code which I have it in the script which kind of tests my function. But when this function library is being called, I don't want my tests to run. I want my tests to run only when the script is called. That is one example. It helps you to test, and also it helps you to separate it. It need not be like, you have you have like 10-15 scripts modules within the package. There could be somewhere, right? Okay, this script one is somewhere in terms of script 2, it is just importing it. But there could be somewhere within your flow where you might need to call the script one directly to execute. That also could happen, right? So to avoid all this and to always not always make this run, there is something called a built-in variable name. So now it is main one if I'm running it directly, otherwise main, otherwise it will be the module name script. So suppose this is what it is. Let me create another script. I'll again give a recap of the theory. This is very kind of important. Everything is important. I might repeat everything is important, but this is kind of one of the interview could be one of your interview questions. Script 1, comma, script 2. What is in script 2? Nothing, right? There is nothing in script 2. I'm just importing it. Okay. Just like the script 2 output, I'm getting the similar output. Though because in script 2 I don't have anything to print, I don't have anything to process, it is still script 1. But now let us copy this line. We'll see, right? Where is my script 1? Let us use this everywhere as in this is script 2, name value from script 2, and where is my script 3? This is my script 3, name value from script 3 is okay. See, you see something different, which you should be understanding it by now. I still want to make it more meaningful from. See, we need to understand, right? We know the answer. Okay, what is the people might ask? Okay, what is the underscore name? It's we can say okay, it's a default value, a default argument in Python, built-in argument, built-in variable in Python, which reads, which gives you the script that is under execution. But you need to understand fully. Or the examples you would have seen, okay, you might see, okay, if it's main, it is running, but what exactly is main? How is it changing? And what is the necessity of this, right? You need to understand it. So now let's run this guy again. Okay. What is script 1? Script 1, it's a module. What is script 2? It's a module. But what is script 3? underscore underscore main, meaning this guy is still a script, right? Now it is being considered as a script because I'm calling script 3. So anything that is under, so right now there is nothing, right? But as a built-in, it's still reading the value as the main, but there is nothing, right? I didn't put any conditional block here, just like in like this. I didn't put any conditional block, but still it has assigned a value to it. What is the value here for this particular guy under script 3? It is main. You understood? Because I'm running this script, so that's the main script. Consider it that way. And the other scripts I'm importing, they're modules. The main part, it's being overridden as script 2 here, script 1 here. That's why, that's one example. So if you go it, this is what you usually find it anywhere, right? It is scoped to the module being executed. If you see, this is what it is not executed when imported, executed only when running as a script. So I've given the explanation why it happens. It's always good to learn, right? Even if you are going through any FAQs, right? Just not this anywhere. Try to get in depth. Spend some more time to it so that you will get the confidence, right? If I ask you, if I'm asked, usually if I'm asked, okay, you would have seen the if name main, right? What is the need? I could say it, okay, it's executed only when it's script call. So how do you say it? I then I can explain, okay, yeah, if, because if I'm calling that script, that will always be the main script. So that now the condition is met, it is running it. But if I'm importing this script, then the main name would be the script name, which is a module name. So then now the condition is not met, though it is compiling my script 1. When I'm running script 2, it doesn't execute it because this condition is false. That's why it is not running it. This is the longest example. Hope you understand it, because this is important, module versus script, not by the terminology but the importance of this. Most of the examples you might see, you would find this line of code, and then everything that follows here, not just one function, right? It could have multiple functions. Everything follows here. That is the main importance of this. Everything is under the same, right? We already know how, why PyCache is here. It is by the version.pyc, the binary of this. Whenever I'm importing something, it's going to create a PyCache. I guess we have already seen, right? If I don't want the PyCache to be there, I think we can just give -b before the script execution. It's not going to create any PyCache directories. This is always removable. It will again generate. Yeah. This is one important topic. I guess I've covered everything that I wanted to cover today. Args and quarks is another important topic within the functions, but maybe just not to keep it boring like arg and argparse. So these are not related, as an arg and argparse is command line arguments. This is within the function level arguments, args and quarks. This is again just like the list and tuple differences. People would definitely ask you about args and quarks. It's very simple topic, but it looks complicated, but it's very simple as you understand it. I'll try to pull up all a real-time example so that you won't get confused to it, and what is the importance also, right? The basic definitions that we have seen is what you define a function here, right? You just accept the arguments here, right? Function level arguments. But there is more to it. That's where args and quarks will come into picture. We are increasing the complexity, right, of learning of the Python concepts also. So these two we will learn. I'll see how to put it. Maybe I'll try to cover one database to make it more interesting, and then I'll try to cover args and quarks. Else I'll try to put it after the basic oops concept that we have to learn. Class objects, right? What is the importance of class and how objects deal with it. and why do we need it. I'll try to use the same example and expand the concepts. I'll see. Next, let's keep it open for the next class. If you have time, go about args and quarks. How do we use it? Database, I've already given a brief. So next, I'll just jump onto the SQLite or MongoDB. We will see. Rest all is covered. Module versus script. This is very important. Try to remember it. Yeah. Maybe I'll next class we'll see about class, which is fun. Class and class definitions and all, right, which is important. I'll give the examples. Yeah, maybe, yeah, next session let's learn about class and objects, class methods. It's a very vast concept, but I'll try to cover what all is required for you to continue with your programming, and then I'll try to introduce args and quarks within it. We should be able to cover it, and then we'll see using the class objects and all, we'll see how to connect to the SQLite databases or Mongo databases from Python and do some operations to it. DDL, data definition, data manipulation commands or languages. Yep. Yep. I think this is the longest class we have so far, but thank you so much for your patience and learning. Do we
Yeah,
have Kola?
yeah. Sampath,
Yeah, Kola. Yeah.
thank you. I think it's a very long session. I really appreciate everyone. Sampath, very good job. Thank you all for the patience and all, and have a good day for India and a good night. Yes, yeah. Please join tomorrow class. So 10 a.m. EST. Make sure you all get the link and join tomorrow. Okay. Thank you. There are very good important sessions tomorrow. More importantly, there are three algorithms and one model deployment. So there are four sessions, like 4 hour sessions, both Saturday and Sunday. Very, very important. Thank you, guys. Good night.
Yep. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe to KKR Gen AI Innovations channel.